All right, man, we're recording. So I'm super pumped for this. If anyone watching, if you don't know, this is Quentin Wright. So Quentin is still, I'm sure, but was a stud wrestler. He got sixth, your true freshman year at Nationals, Division I.
Mm-hmm.
And then second, which is ridiculously good. And now you're the coach at Forearm Wrestling Club just outside of Penn State. And we had a phone conversation the other day, and I reached out because I just wanted to learn more about the Penn State wrestling secret sauce, which we're going to get into. Talk about diet and training. And big thing for me, I'm passionate about is weight cutting and doing it properly. And just my background, a lot of people don't know this, but back in college, I wrestled. I wasn't nearly as good as Quentin, not even in the same ballpark. But I loved the sport, but I hated weight cutting, and I hated it so much. And then the one time we were cutting weight, and a friend of mine, teammate of mine, literally died right in the locker room because we used to cut weight so foolishly. And I think that's one of the reasons I ended up doing what I do. I'm like so passionate about fitness and nutrition and human performance and whatever. But the one thing we were talking about the other day, Quentin, so how much weight did you cut in college?
Well, my freshman year, I cut quite a bit. I would say I wrestled 174 pounds at the time. And don't mind, that's my little future stud. He's joining up. And, but let me see, I wrestled 174 and I was weighing about 185. I would say about 185 at the time. So I was only about 10 pounds, which isn't a lot. And to a lot of kids, that's just like one practice practically.
Right.
So, I'm kind of skinny because that summer I did wrestle 165 at the international tournaments. That previous summer, I got a bronze medal on the international level. And we were Istanbul, Turkey. Whenever I got a bronze medal. Interesting story, Jordan Burroughs was on that same team, and he goes 0-2. And me and I forget his name now, we ended up getting bronze medals there. But that was the last worst tournament that Jordan Burroughs ever had.
So you can claim you outplaced Jordan Burroughs at a tournament.
That's my claim to fame. That was it. And then he came back, and then he went on to win two national titles after that. Yeah, because that was back in the summer of 2008. As whenever we were on that same FILA junior international team. But yeah, I only cut about 10 pounds at the time. And I just controlled my weight. That was one thing I was good at. I was good at controlling my weight. And later on, the coaches would actually yell at me for controlling my weight. They wanted me to fluctuate weight a little bit more, but everybody's different. And you got to do what mentally you can handle. And
how much did you cut your senior year when you bumped up a weight class?
Oh yeah. So my highest that I weighed was about 213 ever. And that was actually right after, what was that? Oh, after that freshman year, I started eating and getting bigger, and I told coaches my redshirt year, because what happened is I was under the old coach. I was the last of Coach Sunderland, who was the coach at Penn State for 10 years. And then they let him go in 2009, right after the NCAA tournament. My true freshman year. And then Coach Cale Sanderson came in right after that. And he took over the program. And he redshirted everybody he could, 2009 and 2010, that season. So during that time, I just ate and got lifted, and I got bigger. And I ended up weighing probably about, I would say maybe 198 at that time. And I told coaches, I'm wrestling 197. That year. So I was going 74 to 97 there, and then they ended up coaching me into wrestling 184. So they had me cut weight back down to 184 during that time. And I didn't want to do that. So I went from probably the most weight I ever cut was probably during that year, the red shirt in my freshman year when I wrestled 184. But I was weighing probably about between 200 and 210. And I was going down to 184.
And then when your senior year, it was at 187, right?
Yeah, in my senior year, I was wrestling 197. So I like to tell people, I kind of brag about it, but at the NCAA tournament, I remember the final day. And I remember 197, and they give you 2 pounds at the end of the day. So 7, 8, 9. You had to weigh in at 199. I weighed in at like 194. So I was like 5 pounds underweight.
And you won the national championship.
Yeah, the day I won the national championship. I weighed in 5 pounds underweight. And
right. So that's what I
Yeah.
emphasize. Like, not so many people at grade school, but even the high school level that are trying to cut so much weight. And here you are, 5 pounds underweight, beating, was it Dustin Kilgore?
Oh yeah, I was Dustin
Yeah.
Kilgore. It probably definitely shows because I mean, everybody was scared. If you go back on the ESPN, and it's on YouTube. I mean, he just looks like a monster, and he was solid, and he was much bigger. And I just looked like this little farm boy that just walked out, just like a skinny green bean type of kid, walking out there. But I like to call it would you rather have a Honda Civic with a NASCAR engine or a NASCAR body with a Honda Civic engine?
Right. Absolutely. The one thing too, so like we talked about this the other day, and I never even thought about this, but just watching Penn State wrestle, you guys always seem, especially towards the end of the year, to just be in better condition than everybody.
Yeah.
And so I was really intrigued by your training, but a big part of it was just how you guys wrestle. So you talk about that, like how you make finishing a move easy.
Okay, so and this is where when we were talking the other day, here's kind of the secret sauce to Penn State. When Coach Kale came in, it takes about a year to learn his system, and it's a completely different thought process than what anybody else in the country teaches. If you look at the Iowa program, they have all these consistencies, and what makes Penn State so consistent is how we finish the technique and how we finish our moves, where we don't have to struggle to finish our moves. When you don't have to struggle to finish the technique, when you don't have to gut through moves, you inherently have a lot more energy during the match. When you have more energy, your mental state is better. You're not expending energy. You feel like you have more. You can finish more shots, and that's the key to Coach Kale and his success at Penn State. Is he teaches us how to finish positions, and it's just like the same thing with weightlifting. What's the difference between a good weightlifter, a guy who can lift a lot of weight, and a guy who can't? Technique. When you have the right technique and you're doing things correctly, you're going to exponentially do a lot more than what other people can do.
Right. And it's just so simple. Like, and you don't see it like someone watching really, but yeah, like for me, there used to be certain moves I'd hate getting in because you burn up so much energy trying to finish it, and then you're dead. Right. And then the tides turn, they start beating up on you. And you can see that with you guys. As far as training that you guys do, I mean, you do sprint training and things like that at Penn State?
Yeah, we do 1 day worth of that, where we call it blowing out your lungs, where you really have to, and I don't know how, there's two things. I have my own personal theories, and then I can tell you what Penn State teaches too. Now, we do 1 day where we blow out our lungs, usually Thursday morning. We use a machine called a VersaClimber. Bike sprints on the Airdyne bikes, those as well. And even just sprinting back and forth in a wrestling room where you're going as hard as you can for about 30 to 45, at the longest, a minute at a time. We do that during the season to really get our heartbeats going. Now, when we're out of season, we do about 1 hour's worth of, I call it grass drills, where you run a mile or you run up a hill 2 or 3 times, depending on how big that hill is. But still, it's really short and condensed. And we do a lot of grip strength during that time, which is kind of like the mental preparation, because you need the longer and extended periods for your mental, to build up that mental capacity, because your brain is just like your body. You need to expand what you thought you could do. And that's where these types of conditionings, more than just physically, is really going to expand your ability to continue doing something. And so I would say probably the mental benefit is just as good as the physical benefit when we do these hard workouts. And we also do it based on a challenge where we keep track who has the best score, who has the best time on every activity. And we challenge everybody in the group that day to beat that best score. And so
I love it. See, like the group, you're always trying to one up each other. So you bring each other to different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gives you not just that why, it answers to why am I doing this? Well, whenever you're trying to beat your teammate, whether he's the little guy or the heavyweight, little guys have more of a reputation to be able to do things faster or be able to do more. But then you have big guys that they're good at certain exercises as well. It might be the Airdyne bike or even sprinting. There's some big guys, man, they can out sprint, little guys, or they can do VersaClimber. VersaClimber is where it's kind of like a climbing machine where you're going with your hands and you're like that. But, big guys sometimes they have the ability to crush little guys because they can take longer strides and they can get 2 or 3 steps where a little guy has to go 100 more times because he's taking 1 step every time, where a big guy could get 2.5, 3 steps in 1 stride. So just things like that. We keep that competitiveness with everybody in the room, and that's keep things interesting as well. And it takes, I would say, kind of the negative aspect of you're really getting the crap kicked out of you, or you're doing this to yourself. It takes that negative away whenever you are challenging against others in the room. The other thing too is that we also challenge ourselves. So if the first time around I get 5 reps, my goal is to get 5.5, 6 reps the second time. And the coaches are constantly asking us, what's your score? What did you get? How did you do that? To make sure that we are continuing challenging ourselves to get that higher score. And when we do decrease in score, the coach would be like, all right, come on. We know you got better. You can do it. It's always a positive atmosphere whenever they're coaching us through these hard exercises. But I'd say that's kind of like what we do for this conditioning wise. We do mostly that. And then during the beginning of the season, and even during the summertime, we do a lot of your, I would say, powerlifting type of lifts, right, exercises outside that. But we always do at least one day that's more the focus in season of this kind of sprinting, these types of exercises. But out of season, we continue that as well. And then we also add in our heavy lifting.
Right. And then with that, like Penn State, you guys are so good at peaking at the right time. So can you talk about a little bit, the sleep that they have you do, the recovery, the diet, the nutrition, like all of that is part of your program?
Okay. So the secret sauce with Penn State is really our training program. And this has to be credited with Coach Cody Sanderson. He's the oldest of the Sanderson boys. He's a pre-med major. He is ridiculously smart. And he also still has a full head of hair as well.
Hate him for it. I hate both you guys for it.
Well, here's the thing. I tell Coach Kale, he always tells he tells everybody, you know why I don't have any hair? We're like, why, Coach? He's like, because I block all my shots with the top of my head. He says, you don't use your face, you use your head. So that's how we remember to use our head when somebody shoots. You're using right here. That's why he doesn't have any. And so I guess that's his way of saying he blocked a lot of shots. But even at Casey Cunningham too. So Coach Cody Sanderson, he sets up the program on, and he talks with the other coaches. Kale, he's the boss. He has the final say. He puts the final word down. But Coach Cody Sanderson, Casey Cunningham, and Kale, they all really work together. I would say Cody's really the brains. Casey Cunningham he does a lot of the mental aspect of it, and wrestling. He does a lot of top wrestling. And Kale, he does just all around wrestling. He's just a magician when it comes to, I'll call it savant when it comes to wrestling, because that guy, he loves wrestling more than anyone else I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he'll grab a dummy just to wrestle it whenever no one else is available. But get back to peaking at the right time. The key to peaking right now comes from Cody. He looks at the team, how we're reacting. He sees the number of injuries or people complaining about being hurt, because that's an indicator of sometimes things that have gone on for a week or 2 weeks. But he keeps notes of every single day of every season for the past 10 years. And he keeps track of the progress and how kids did and the injuries. So he's got it down pretty good. Now, this year being a bad year for Penn State, we had a bunch of injuries, I think, just with the Olympics and the way things were going. It was different. But Coach Cody Sanderson has it down where, we overtrain in the beginning of the season as a Penn State team. And then middle of the season, we pick times where we overtrain. Maybe 1 week we overtrain, and then we're kind of backing off towards mid-season, so December into January. And then towards mid or end of January, we really don't do a lot of training. And I call it the 1.5 hour rule. Beginning of season, our practices are 2 hours long. Mid-season, they're 1.5 hours. At the end of the season, you got 60 minutes in practice and you're out. That's it. And funny thing is, the key to Penn State's, and that's where the key to Penn State's success is, that not to overtrain.
All right.
And by doing things like that and watching how the guys react and keeping notes from the past, Coach Cody Sanderson realized that overtraining hurts you more than undertraining, because the Iowa mentality, I'm the best, I'm going to go crush this guy, I'm in better shape. Well, what happens is that mentality overtrains your body, and it causes it to work.
Down.
Or 80% of your capacity. And this is where it's important. When your body's at 80% capacity, you could be really good at 80%. The problem is whenever your body gets into that fight and the flight and that last second where you have to score a point, your body is stuck at 80%. It can't, no matter how much your brain tells you to go, your body's keep a consistent 80% consistency because it's in survival mode at that point. And that's whenever you're overtrained. No, and I've done it in my career. Penn State's not always perfect because I remember the one time I overtrained like that, I did it to myself. I wrestled Coach Sanderson for 3 matches on Monday. Morgan McIntosh, national champ, really good from California on Tuesday. And Ed Ruth, I wrestled from 3 matches on Wednesday. Boom, boom, boom. And then I had to go in and wrestle Big Ten tournament. And then I ended up taking 3rd and hurt because I killed myself thinking, oh, I'm so good. I'm such in shape. And then when my body needed the energy at the Big Ten tournament, I had nothing left in the gas tank. And that was one of the things there where Cody Sanderson, the coaches, and they realized that over time, your body over the season wears down and you have to build in that rest. Especially the goal is to win the NCAA tournament. Everything is kind of, setting up for that. And so peaking at the NCAA tournament is all about timing of your exercise, your total exercise. It doesn't matter if you're snapping the ball or if you're wrestling with somebody. That's exercise. It's wearing your body in some way. So you really have to plan for that. And you can always, if your body's not at that 80% level, you can always jump to 100%. And you see the NCAA tournament where we have our guys that they go from that 80% and they jump into that 100% level at the NCAA tournament in that last 2 seconds to get that take.
Yeah, I see all the time because like Iowa, Minnesota, those guys that just grind, and they don't know how to peak. They're always not most often underperform there. You have a few of your freaks that they're just freaks, right? Who can train ungodly amounts, but they always seem to fade, and you guys seem to peak because you got that figured out. How much sleep do they recommend for you guys?
Oh, we just 7 to 8 hours.
Really?
Yeah, 7 to 8 hours. They want a continuous. You get your sleep. Sleep is super important, and that's where Coach Kell, he really doesn't want our guys out. It's a lifestyle, so you can't be out partying because that messes up your week. You can't be out late at night, and there's guys who can do it. There's some guys who can get away with it, but overall, that takes away from your ability to perform within the next week. It doesn't affect you one night. Yeah, you might feel good, but your body's affected up to a week later.
Absolutely. The one thing, too, I asked the other day, because you guys, whenever a Penn State guy locks up a cradle, it's like done dancing, right? So I was like, you guys must do some crazy grip strength training. And then talk about what you guys do, because it wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, so when you brought up this question before, now we do some plate grabs where we grab plates kind of like this to hold it. And we do that as a challenge. Who has the strongest hands in the room? Kind of when we do that. I was always the worst. Matter of fact, first guy out. My grip strength is awful. I always tell people that I'd love to do American Ninja Warrior, but that's all grip strength and I got none. So I'm not going to be any good at that. But what we do is when we get in those wrestling positions, Coach Kale, and when we're in practice, we practice positions. And cradle's just one of them. Coach Kale say, okay, I want you to lock up a cradle and play around in this position. And when you first come to Penn State, you're like, what's this play thing? Coach Kale teaches us you're wrestling live at, I'd say 50, 60. Actually, one guy's going about 80%. The other guy's going about 70%. All right. So we do this play wrestling where you practice these wrestling positions. So the biggest thing, and it doesn't matter if you lock up your hands, kind of like the finger lock, or you grab here. He says, get in this position, and bottom guy, I want you to go nuts. Top guy, I want you to jump around. Well, what do you mean, coach? And jumping around. So I want you to flip over, roll back, roll through, lift them up. I want you to practice doing all these things on purpose while that guy's going 100%. So that way we practice holding that grip in all those weird positions, because in wrestling, which Coach Kale taught at Penn State is he might have learned it from the Russians or Bobby Douglas, where he learned it from. I mean, Coach Kale's not named by everything that he's done. He's also learned from somewhere else as well. And you put all that together, and Coach Kell, he expands on it. But he learned that your body reacts different ways in different positions. And the only way that you can learn how to react in that position is by trying it. And the regular way we've always been taught, hit a high crotch over and over. Your body gets used to doing it the one way.
Right.
Coach Kale teaches us is, okay, I want you to do this high crotch, or in this case, the cradle. I want you to lock up a cradle, and then I want the bottom guy to go about 80% live, hard. Top guy, I want you to go 75% trying to hold on to it. And we might do this for 10 minutes and then every time the guy breaks, you take a little second, you can talk about it, laugh about it, and then you try it again. So each guy's having fun because bottom guy, he's trying to break this lock. Top guy, he's trying to hold on. And that's where you learn to hold these positions, and how, sometimes, because you can't hold this 100% for 5 minutes, but based on the bottom guy's reaction, you can feel when he's kind of relaxing, and you can relax a little bit. You can feel when he's ramping up, because you might need to only hold it for 30 seconds strong, and then you can kind of relax it a little bit and start snuggling down in that position, getting him to his back. But we kind of simulate that in practice by this thing called play wrestling.
The one thing too, like, I can't believe we didn't do this, but like when I wrestled and whatever, you didn't want to get scored on even in practice. And then you said, you're like, dude, I want to give up 100 points every practice.
Yeah, my goal is to give up 100 points every practice. And I tell this all the time, people, that in Penn State, we try to give up points in practice. Well, why? Because in order to give up points now, it's not, I'm going to be a limp noodle and let the guy take me down. That's not
right.
The point. The point is that in order to give up 100 points, I have to be trying to get 300 points. And that's the aggressive style that Coach Kale preaches. And now you see infect the whole NCAA tournament. Back whenever I first started NCAA tournament, 2009, every NCAA title match was 3-2. It was boring. You look at 2000, probably 2002 through 2008. Every NCAA title match is like 3-2 when you have two good guys. Now that NCAA title match is like 8-6, 13-9. It's crazy, but this attack, and then you're going to eventually figure out how to score points. That's what we do here in practice. That's what we did in practice. So in order to give up 100 points, I have to be trying for 300 points, and that's the big difference maker.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so much smarter than trying to just not give up points in practice, right? But yeah, and that translates to boring matches, and it's not fun.
No, and that's what I think of it like, think of it, two squirrels fighting over a nut. That's what you're doing in practice with takedowns and doubles and single legs and snap downs. That's how you're practicing, because you're going to learn more how to react in these positions, because a good guy puts you in a position that normal people don't put you in.
Right.
Well, the only way to practice that position is to have your normal people put you in these positions that you never even thought possible. So
speaking of Kale, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, and all I was going to say is that I remember when we first came to Penn State, I call the best way to explain it is Coach Kale, like, okay, one guy starts it on double leg, top, or the other guy, I want you to do everything that you know to be incorrect. I want you to do everything that you know is wrong with defending this shot, and keep wrestling. So a good example is, you ever see like Jason Knoll, if he had guys get in a high crotch and you do a forward roll.
Right.
That came out. Yeah, all it is a forward roll, and the guy ends up on his back. I mean, it blows your mind. But Kale developed that out of playing around in these positions, and he realized every time a guy got a high crotch and they go to cut across, you do a forward roll, and the guy ends up on his back.
That's crazy. Speaking of Kale, you ever beat him in practice?
Yeah, think of it as two squirrels rolling around over a nut. That's what you're doing when you're wrestling. When you're doing everything wrong like that, you're learning what works and what doesn't work. I tell people the light bulb, Thomas Edison, he took 1,107 times the wrong way. It was at 1,007 times the wrong way. And then 1,008 times he lit up the world.
Figured it out. And speaking of Kale, like, you ever beat him in practice, or when you were a national champ, could he thump you?
Oh yeah, that keeps you humble. There's nobody to this day. There's no one can beat Kale. And the reason is because he is so he's so good at positions. He's so good at positions that he puts you in bad positions. That's just the best way. Like when I first came to Penn State, I spent 2 weeks fumbling over my own feet. Kale would just step on my feet and push me over. I couldn't even get a shot. And Kale, he didn't need to take a shot because he would step on my toes and literally push me over. That was my hello, I'm Kale Sanderson moment. He spends the first 2 weeks stepping on your toes and pushing you over because when you come out of high school, you don't know how to move your feet. And that was and then once he starts doing that enough, then you start moving your feet and you become a better wrestler. It's unbelievable. But yeah, there's not a single person. The only person that actually came close to keeping it competitive with Kale. Now, I don't know how David Taylor is now at 85, but he wasn't even close when he was down to 65. 85 now, being fat and happy, he has a better shot. But the actual only person that I've ever seen, I haven't seen like Kyle Snyder, who's trained at Penn State, but yeah, I think Kale beats him up from what I understand. Still now, the only person that came close was Ed Ruth. And that lasted for about 4 minutes, I would say, that he could keep it close. And then just Kale would burn him. And that was after 4 years of being under Kale, though. I mean, Ed Ruth knew all of Kale's tricks and everything. He knew how to start and stop it. Actually, the only other person that's close now is Casey Cunningham. And
I heard he's a super stud wrestler.
Oh, he is too. And he's learned a lot from Coach Kale. And being with him for so long, I remember in the summertime, it's so funny because those two, when I mean Kale loves wrestling, nobody else is coming into practice room. He grabs Casey Cunningham and they'll wrestle for an hour. Just those two. They wrestle each other for an hour. 30 minutes of that hour are those two arguing about who actually scored. So they'll go one takedown, they'll like 10 minutes of wrestling, and then they spend arguing who scored the actual points or not. Which Kale would said, you walked off the mat, you forfeit. And Coach says, no, I got the last takedown. I won.
We're not. Let me ask you this. Okay, have you ever heard Kale yell at a wrestler?
Well, yeah. Yeah, he has. I would say he's not perfect, as we all may see.
Right.
The perception that he may have, he's not all perfect. We're all human. But he really doesn't do it as much, I would say, as normal coaches. When Kale has two modes, he has calm and really mad.
Right. The switch.
He has modes. Yeah, he has two modes, calm and really mad. And I think there's maybe been 4 or 5 times in his life he's been really mad. I got to enjoy one of them. But
what made him really mad?
Losing to Iowa. I would say that was a very salty point in my career. It also jump-started my national title run too that year. And our Penn State's first NCAA title. I had the whole team we had lost. It was disappointing, and Kale really had him. He'd never beaten Iowa yet, and that was a year he could have done it, but 4 of us on the team did not do as well as we should have. I didn't. Frank Molinaro didn't do it. I think our heavyweight didn't do it either, and then maybe might have been one of the Alton twins. He ended up losing when he had a kid on his back, Montel Mary, and he was ready to pin him. And it was a disappointing moment. And then yeah, I caught the brunt of that one, put it that way.
Right. Speaking of coaches,
but he doesn't yell at guys to get his point across, because he realizes yelling and screaming in a guy's face doesn't really do much. It's the consistent, calm, pushing him towards the end goal is what really makes that change. And he does a very good at being consistently calm and pushing you into the right direction.
So it's probably like 99% like calm, collective, intentional motivation, and maybe 1% yelling.
Yeah, maybe 1% in a kind of like a yelling upset fashion. He really doesn't do that, because he's realized it doesn't motivate somebody. Yelling like that doesn't motivate. It breaks down the communication barrier, and he does a lot of, and he tries to keep those communications going with the guys on the team,
right?
Because that's super important to keep in their brain and to keep them knowing where they're at. Because in college, it's a lot different. It's a lot different than high school. College is a lot more mental, and there's a lot more things that go into it that have to be dealt with. And it's just not your wrestling. It deals with schoolwork. It deals with your family life, or your social life outside of the wrestling. That all plays into it, and he understands that well. So he tries to keep that communication open.
That's all. See, I've had coaches yell at me, and it never made me want to work harder or do better or perform. It just made me mad at them. Like I never understood, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, just tell me I can do better. Say, hey, you could probably work harder. It's like, all right, you're right, I can. Speaking of that, so one thing I've noticed with coaches, and we talked about it the other day, is it seems like a coach will learn from their coach, who learn from their coach, and it's just bad coaching being taught and regurgitated throughout the levels. Do you see that too?
No, absolutely. And you even see at the college level, the wrestlers are a direct reflection of their coach. For the most part, they're a direct reflection. I mean, if you look at the Cornell kids and then you watch how Rob Cole is, they're a direct reflection of him. Iowa, their wrestlers are a direct reflection of their coach. It was so apparent. It's actually been fuzzy. I would say fuzzy. It's a lot more fuzzy now with the all those Pennsylvania guys on the Iowa team this year. But before that, it was that's why we called it the Iowa robot mentality, where they were they had one mission. They weren't happy when they won because they were expected to do that. I mean, that kind of mentality. Ohio State, same. Oklahoma State, those guys would always cut a lot of weight. But those personalities were a lot of, you are a direct reflection of who you hang around. Wrestlers, coaching staff, you're a direct reflection of who you hang around. So that's pretty apparent within those programs.
Yeah, the one thing I see like high school guys is, because you can reach out and programs like Penn State and guys like you and learn from them. It's like, man, you're such a wealth of knowledge. Why keep regurgitating what your high school coach, who was very mediocre, did, when you can reach out to you guys who like preach good diet, not cutting massive, not the roller coaster weight cutting, where it's like you maintain, or like you go in 5 pounds under and still win freaking nationals. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so crazy to me. Like, it's so obvious, but so few people follow the secret sauce. And I'm hoping more people do it.
I think the biggest thing too is a lot of people are afraid to approach other people. That's the biggest thing, and especially in the social media technology. There's probably not a college kid or a high school coach that's not willing to take 10 minutes and give you some of their advice of what they have learned. Or I know I won a national title with one arm. I tell people that all the time. My first national title, Penn State's first team national title, I won it because I figured out a way to deal with a season-ending injury. Me and Logan Stieber got hurt on the same exact weekend. I blew up my shoulder and he broke his hand. He got an NCAA injury red shirt. Didn't need to count that season. I found a way to win a national title that year. 3 months later, it's just, we all go through different things. And so people are afraid to reach out and ask those questions. And I would say that's the biggest thing, is reach out to somebody who's had to deal with some type of similar situation and ask them, hey, how'd you get through it? And don't be afraid to do that. And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing here, is just learning from people who did better. One thing too with you guys is so obvious is Kale's. He's just got in everyone's brain, and it's just so brilliant to see every tournament, every match as like an opportunity to be thankful for, because that window is so short. Like, how quickly do your competitive years disappear, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, you guys go out there appreciative.
Yeah, and that was the big thing that Cale preaches, because whenever, and he learned it early in his career, whenever you're being grateful for your situation, your body doesn't, I call it energy. Your body has more energy. Whenever you're grateful, you don't really get high, you don't get low. You're grateful, you're content, not in the situation, but you're thinking, you know what, it could be worse, it could be better. So I'm grateful for where I'm at. Your body uses that energy and can do something good with that. Where if I'm celebrating my win, I'm using my energy to have to celebrate something that doesn't really have a long-term effect. That was just right now. Today, I was better than that person. We do the same thing tomorrow. He might be better than me. So that really being grateful, being happy, keeps your mind from having to do that roller coaster of emotions, which ultimately takes away from your long-term energy there. And there's nothing wrong with being, happy or being in the moment. But I always tell people, don't give people a reason to hate you. Whenever I would say this year, Mark Hall, whenever he lost to Kemmer in the Iowa duel meet, I mean, how many people have been looking at Mark Hall because he's been pounding the hammer, because he's been flexing, because he's doing these things? You're bringing in all this negative energy into being against you. And I don't know if you believe against that. Hey, it all works. It all works together. When you feel one place all hate you at once, it has an effect. So I would. That's the biggest reason. Always be grateful, because it keeps you on I would say, just a level playing field, that you don't get too high, you don't get too low. No matter what happens, you can deal with it, because you're grateful you can be here. If something bad happens, you know what, somebody has it worth. If something good happens, wow, this is awesome. I mean, yes, this is great. This is great, and I'm thankful for it. So it just keeps you just nice and level when it comes to having the long-term energy, long-term success.
That was like stoicism, not too high, not too low. And the other thing too is, like, because you said at the end of your season, like at the end of most wrestling seasons, because it's so long and people treat it as a grind, like they're like, oh, I cannot wait till season's over. But you guys, you said it's like, God darn it, season's over, because even practice you're grateful for, like workouts you're grateful for. It's fun, yes.
Yeah, and that's the secret with Penn State. I always tell people that when Penn State guys get to the end of the season, except for the guys who really have to cut weight. And I've seen that a few times, because sometimes you're not the best guy in the room. You're not the worst guy in the room, but there's an open spot in lineup and you have to cut the weight in order to be there. That's your only option. So sometimes guys, we call it getting a little salty. We always ask them, why are you so salty? Just to show the fact that just be grateful that you're still able to wrestle, that you're still able to go through the season. So my little guy's going to do something crazy. So I was watching him there. But getting back to the question there, what was the original question?
Yeah, so about like how you guys, you practice everything, but you guys are grateful for it, so that you're happy at the end of the year.
Yeah, why we're happy at the end of the year, because it has to go back with Coach Cody Sanderson and his planning, where one, we're not being overtrained, we're not cutting weight the wrong way, and because when you cut weight the wrong way, it takes all your energy out of you, and it takes your mental energy, and you start, as the season goes on, it's just kind of like you pile on your dirty clothes into laundry. By the time you do your laundry,
snowballs, right? Snowballs in a negative direction.
Yeah, in the season. But the way we take that is by managing it in the season. Whenever you come to practice, that's why you see probably so much Penn State playing dodgeball. When you play dodgeball, it's a way, as the guys do in the room, it's a way of taking that big pile of laundry of all the negative things that are happening or currently going on, and you start filing them away, and you start putting them away. That's one way that it helps take away from that 100% negative. I wanted to say negative, but just like energy, expending energy, all that energy that you're expending because you need to do it for drilling and practices, and it's tough and it's hard. You had a bad day, but then when you cup it with like something like the dodgeball, playing the dodgeball at the end of practice, now you start adding energy back into you. It's a way of back energy.
You know what it seems like, Q, is so stress hormones, right? So if you're stressed out before the match, you're thinking whatever, your stress hormones are getting released, so you don't have those available, like you said, mid-match, right? You want your stress to be able to poop, and you can peak, and you have that energy burst, and you're ready to go that last 30 seconds. You guys stay like relaxed, so you're not wasting, fight or flight energy before you need it. It's just smart.
Yeah, worry. Well, think about today, right now with how everything's going on with this coronavirus, right. Everyone's worrying. Well, worry is just an emotion. Emotion's just an energy. Right. So you are using all your energy to do something that you have no control over.
Exactly.
Other than
Don't worry about what you can't change, man.
Yeah. You can only, and people are, a fear is just an energy. Faith is an energy. It's an energy. I don't know scientifically, because I'm probably way off.
Can I go explore?
Go ahead and explore, buddy.
To find another buckhorn.
Go ahead. He found a deer horn out in our yard.
Nice.
Yeah, this morning, which is kind of crazy. So
it is. Because I've spent about 12 hours actively searching. I found 0 so far.
Well, I never found one in my life, and he's 6 years old, and he got one. It's unbelievable. But he's using his exploring energy to go do that. And worry, faith, that's all energy. And within wrestling matches, this is my own personal theory. I really don't have scientific to back it up. If anyone wants to look into it, they can look into it. But I always ask myself, why, if I am in such good shape, then actually, let me answer this worrying. Now, keeping it in that even level, that worrying energy, you don't have control over it. Coach Kale just tells us, because people have a fear of losing. Well, a fear of losing is it's just an energy. You have no control whether the ref raises your hand or not. What you do have control over is moving your feet, setting up the shot, going after those little tiny points, those little tiny moves. And so use that energy. When you think so big, your brain can't handle it, and you become paralyzed because you think, oh my gosh, what if I lose? What if I lose? What if I lose? But you really don't have any control whether you lose or not. What you do have control over is, how am I moving my hands? How am I moving my body? Where I'm moving my feet. And when you focus on those little tiny steps, the big thing will take care of itself. If you do all those little steps together, the big thing will take care of itself. At Penn State, we used to have an old Harisho Oishi is his name, Japanese coach. And he used to tell the guys, how do you eat an elephant? And coaches would be guys like, what do you mean, eat an elephant? He says, one bite at a time. You take something that's so big and you put it in something little, something that you can control, that you can do. And you just keep doing that. And eventually you're going to take care of that bigger task. And Coach Kale did the same thing. So what if you lose? Doesn't matter. No big deal. But what you can control is how much effort you put into the situation, how much what you're thinking about, moving your feet, and these little tiny things.
How often does he use the word consistency?
Yeah, consistently do it, and you got to practice it. You have a season. That's why it's called practice, because you're practicing how to do this. So when we're in practice, your mind is thinking about doing these little tiny things, searching through these little tiny things, and thinking about it whenever you're wrestling. So when the coach says, okay, go live, you go live on your feet. Well, all of a sudden that live is, what am I doing with my brain? My brain is, okay, move my feet. Here's how I hit my hands. Don't worry about getting a takedown. That's too big. Just focus on moving your hands, moving your feet, and grabbing that leg. Those little things is what helps you get that takedown, as opposed to, oh, I got to take a shot. Well, taking a shot it's a big concept, but there's 100 little tiny things that go into making that shot possible, that you'd be better off thinking about doing.
Right. The one thing I just pick it up when I'm watching interviews wherever, it's like consistency. Does he preach that constantly? Consistent with healthy diet, consistent with sleep, consistent with your workouts, consistent with everything?
Yeah, absolutely. He preaches, and I would say anybody else in Iowa, I would say Iowa is the gold standard when it comes to consistency, working hard, and kind of like that mentality. Consistency sets you up to be the best you can be. What you consistently do is what you're consistently going to be. So in practice, but it doesn't start in just matches. It starts in practice. You got to consistently practice these little concepts in practice, and do it over and over and over. That's why you drill. Drilling is just consistently the same way you hit a move, except for, and that's your, I'd say, traditional way of drilling as well. Well, Coach Kale he changed it up a little bit, that you consistently play in these positions. And that's why Penn State's so good at, for the most part, they're so good at scrambling. They're so good at finishing positions, because we consistently play through these situations. Now, that consistently gets, I would say, clinched up or refined when it comes to NCAA tournament, because you use the whole practice, the whole year, to figure out, what can I do that works? What can I do that doesn't work? Or what do I do that doesn't work? Don't do what doesn't work. And at that point, focus on the things that do work, that you consistently find that work. And that's how you win at the Big Tens and NCAA tournament, is that you focus on those little things that all year you've been consistently doing all these things. There's some things that it doesn't matter how many times you try, it never works. For me, It's an ankle pick. I never could get an ankle pick. I tried it. I could not do it, and I failed miserably. But what I could do consistently is hit a headlock. And so I'd throw people and slam them on their head. And plus, that's what made me happy.
You know what's crazy about so the little college I went to, the coach was like so dead set against the headlock because he thought it was like a kid's move.
Yeah.
And it always bothered me because I'm like, D1 guys are pinning guys in headlocks all the time.
Yeah.
It works. Why not do it? And you freaking launch people.
Well, and that's because every body is different. Every person is different. You have to do what works for your body.
Right.
Your body will tell
That's what's
you.
awesome about wrestling. There's so many body types and so many different techniques and styles and moves.
Yeah, and that's why Kale says when he first came to Penn State, he tried to instill, ankle pick. This is what you do. This is the takedown. Yada yada yada. Just trust this is what's gonna happen. When I was kind of the guy who broke the mold and said, I can't do it. I'm miserable. I hate practice. I can't do this. And what changed things around and why Penn State won the first national title is because after I busted my shoulder, I got back. I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. And I said, God, why am I miserable? And he said, I didn't make you to do ankle picks. And I said, I know, I'm miserable. This sucks. And he says, what do you like to do? I said, I like to throw people and slam them. And he's like, that's what I made you to do. I'm like, okay. Blast double legs and throwing people. That's what I started to focus on. I started having more fun in practice, and I started scoring points. It was awesome. And I was having fun.
No, that is sweet. Super sweet. You're having fun wrestling.
Yeah.
So one thing I find, so like Penn State, it's like the truest of dynasties right now. You talk about Alabama football, Clemson football, whatever. But what's Penn State won? 8 out of 9 national titles.
Yeah, I think we kind of dodged a bullet this year because it's one of those things where I wish we would have had the national title this year.
It'd have been close, man. I guarantee it.
Well, that's what I mean. Who would have thought that we would have beat Ohio State 2 years ago when they had 7 guys in the semifinals?
Right.
Yeah,
it'd have been close.
It's like it's one of those things where we'll never know. But I had deep down inside, I have a feeling Penn State would have pulled it out just because of the Iowa guys, Minnesota guys, Oklahoma State guys, them all knocking each other off at the NCAA tournament. Because that's what you really need to win the NCAA tournament is that you need other teams that aren't in the team race to knock other guys off. And Penn State's really good at winning those matches, and getting 5 guys into the finals. So I really, truly think that Penn State would have eventually won. But, man, you never know. That's the thing.
One thing,
you never know. We don't get to see it now.
This just popped into my head. I think any good coach, good leader, whatever, leads by example. Does Kale practice what he preaches?
Oh, absolutely. He loves wrestling more than anyone else. Like I said, when we're at wrestling, and I don't know if he still does it now. I bet he does. He is in the practice room 15 to 20 minutes longer than any wrestler on the team. And he's usually still wrestling. He'll grab the 25-pounder and he'll start play wrestling. He'll start rolling around with them, goofing off. I just call it goofing off. But a lot of times whenever I'd wrestle Cal, he'd hold me down on bottom for 10 minutes at a go. I'm trying to get off, and he just holds me down and says, "Stay." Okay, good. Stay. And the whole time you're trying to fight off, and every time you go to do something, he does something that one you have never seen before that holds you down. And but that's how he wrestles. He plays around like a cat playing with a toy.
Right. But he also sleeps right, eats right, trains. He does everything he expects you guys to do, I would assume.
Yeah. We don't see him, I'd say, too much outside of practice, but he doesn't really – he expects it of us because he says that's what you have to do to win. But, no, I'd say some coaches, like I've had other coaches where, you see him at the bar over the weekend, drinking and doing things like that. I mean, Coach Kale, he lives a clean lifestyle. So does Casey Cunningham, so does Cody Sanderson. They live I'll call it the clean lifestyle. They show that and they preach that, and he says, listen, you can do this, but it's going to hamper. It's going to hamper your ability. And one thing I like to say too is that here's another misconception as well. And I'm going to go into one of I call my Quentin Wright Q-tip rants. Because I've seen, as bad as this is, I've seen guys that like to party every weekend, do illegal drugs and win the national title. And I've seen guys who they live the right lifestyle. They don't even put 2 slices of cheese on their Subway sandwich, that they live the life right style. And then they don't win. Life isn't fair.
Right.
All right. What the truth is the reality is, are you 1 point ahead at the end of the match? That's what it comes down to. And living that clean lifestyle gives you the best chance, the most, I would say, of the opportunity to be that 1 point ahead at the end of the match. But nothing will stop, I would say, your will, your tenacity to win, to find a way to win. That's what ultimately comes down to. And that will to win, that tenacity to win, all that means is you're 1 point ahead at the end of that 7 minutes.
One thing I see with guys, so people have different potentials. So some guys, their potential is so high and they're so gifted, they can get away with that other stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
and then,
absolutely.
But if that guy, and then you got this other guy, his potential's only here, but he lives a super clean lifestyle to get to here. But this other guy, he's just so damn gifted, he can still win. It's like, man, because I met people that's like, if they actually took these gifts and applied the clean lifestyle to it, that's where you get the Jordan Burroughses and the kind. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's where you get the freaks of the freaks, is the gifts plus the work and the lifestyle. And I hate it when someone has so much gifts and they don't utilize it. They just, you know what I mean? It's unfortunate to me.
Yeah, that's what, whenever talent and work ethic combine, talent, work ethic with the clean work ethic being that clean lifestyle.
Then you get the freaks.
That's whenever you get the all-stars in any sport.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I'll call it not being afraid. You're fearless. You gotta be, in order to be the best in whatever you want to do, you have to be fearless. You gotta be fearless.
Right.
And fearless, I'm not afraid of. It's fearless as in, all right, let's do it. You got to have that, let's do it mentality. No matter what is said, let's do it.
Not afraid to lose, not afraid to fail. You know what I think, too, the biggest problem is fear comes from people are so concerned about what other people will think of them if they get beat. Does that make sense?
Well,
so
no, absolutely.
They're worried about getting judged by other people. It's like, have the balls to do it and not care what other people think about you potentially losing.
Yeah, and I would say that's the biggest thing with even the technology age we're in too. A lot of times we're afraid of what other people may think or other people react. Whenever you don't have any fear and you don't care about what other people think of you, that's when you're ultimately free to be the best that you can be. And that's what holds people back, is that it is that fear. Fear of, what if I don't get the takedown? What if I lose? What if I lose? What are other people going to think? All that negative energy takes that from you. But the key to winning and being these, guys like Jordan Burroughs and Cale, you have to fight that fear every day and turn that into something that you look forward to. Turn that into a challenge and make it a challenge. Push away. It doesn't matter what, because whenever you're wrestling, it's not about the guy beside you. And I'll say this at my wrestling practices: it doesn't matter about that guy running beside you as much it is, are you beating yourself? And you have to beat yourself every day consistently. And then that's how you overcome that fear.
Right. See, one of the big reasons I do this is, so like what I do is we have, my whole goal is I have a health club. So we have like group fitness, nutrition, just leading awesome, I call it being an athlete of life. Like, I just want to be a fit, strong, healthy dude for a long time and be a good role model for my family. And it like parallels what you guys do so much, like the same, be grateful to show up for workout, live the lifestyle, have fun. And the big thing I see is so many people are afraid to even come and join a workout facility because of what some stranger might judge them in a place. It's like, it's so crazy how many people limit their lives because of fear. And it's nonsense. It's just it's an imagined emotion.
That's the key in life, is the key to life is really, how do I overcome fear? Fear is not a terrible thing in the right context.
Right.
let's say putting a hot iron on a stove, you don't show me how tough you are by putting your hand on a hot stove and burning your hand. It just shows me how stupid you are. But what a natural fear is, you're going, it's snowing bad outside and you don't have to go somewhere. You don't have to show me how you can drive through the snow.
Right.
If you don't
Exactly.
don't do it. That's that natural fear. Where it becomes bad is whenever it holds you back from being the best that you could be. So as you're saying, that what other people think of me, it's important it's somewhat important, but it's not as important as what you think of yourself.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes, and I had to learn it in college too, that sometimes we have so many people that they speak into us, and they say, and our mind becomes a record player saying, I'm not this, or I can't do that because of, or I don't have the talent. That's all nonsense. What you have in your heart, let's see right here, what you have in your heart, that's what's most important. And your heart, what the desire you have in your heart, you'll tell your brain will tell your body, and your body will go do it. We'll figure out how to get it done. So whatever you have as that desire in your heart, that's what tells your brain what to do. And then your brain will try to figure it out and tell your body to go do it. That's how you do it. But in your heart, you can't let that, in your mind, will have that record player. Well, you're not big enough, or you're not strong enough. You're not doing
self-doubt. Very, very damaging.
Yeah, that's where that self-doubt, or other people will speak that into you, or that fear is, they're right. They're kind of right. That's when you start accepting it and it starts getting in your heart. That's not you. What's in your heart is, I can be a national champ.
That'd be where a good coach comes in too, where they're telling us, like, you are awesome. You can win. You can beat this guy. You can be the best. You can win.
They're the ones that help. And they're the ones that, I would say, coaches are the ones that start that process. But ultimately, the individual has to get that into the brain, into the heart, and start believing in themselves, and getting that faith in themselves, and really, putting up a hand to other people, saying, okay, that's what you think. This is not. I always called it like a football. It gives me an idea where, okay, I'm not strong enough to win it. Or when I won that, I busted my shoulder pretty good. Actually, I'll show you here in a little bit. When I busted my shoulder, I'd be like, listen, I only got one arm. How can I win the national title with one arm? Or I'm not whole, so I can't win the national title. You take that thought, you put it in a football, and you throw it back to the person who said it. You throw it back to someone and you say, hey, that's yours. That ain't mine. Mine is, I'm going to figure this out. I can do it. I got another arm. I can figure it out. I told people that I won the national title with one arm, only to be shown up by the guy who won it with one leg.
Right. One thing I find too is when you focus on being like the best version of yourself instead of competing against other people. So sometimes if you're always like worrying about other people, you almost resent other success. But it's like, now if I'm just want to be a best version of me, I'm happy when other people are best versions of themselves too.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So it's just, you're always happier. This is everything better.
Yeah. And that was a big thing. I mean, even if you look at, I'll come back to Mark Hall again. The guys in the Penn State team, whenever you start developing that internal being happy, that's whenever you really start. And Iowa was a good example of that this year too. I mean, those guys in that team, they're genuinely happy for each other. They're there supporting each other. In Penn State, I'd say we've really had that since Kale started that. We're as happy for each other's successes as we are for our own success. So guys who won the national title, we were just as happy as that guy became an one-time All-American as we were as us winning the national title.
Oh, right.
And it's huge, because once you start promoting the success of others, it builds up your own success.
What made you happier, winning a national title or getting a takedown on Kale in practice?
Oh, geez. That's a tough one. I think I don't know if I've ever gotten a legit takedown on Kale. I mean, he's just that good.
That is so ridiculous.
Fight me. He's giving me a lot of points because he's nice. Coach Kale's nice. He'll wrestle with you, and he'll let you score whenever you do something decent, do something nice. He lets you score. Now, Casey Cunningham, I know for a fact I've never taken down. Casey Cunningham, I call him stingy. He don't let you score a point when you wrestle him. But I would say it's pretty close. It's pretty darn close whenever coming close to getting a takedown on Kale and as winning the national title. I would say it's definitely that same feeling whenever you're trying for something for so hard for so long and you were able to accomplish it.
Right.
But it's a funny thing too. People, I also stress too that it's good to have those big things and big things in life, but it doesn't define you as a person. Because there was times whenever with my schoolwork, I was just it's the same emotion whenever you work at anything, whatever it is, you work on it as hard as you can and you obtain it. It's just the NCAA tournament is one outlet. It's just one outlet for it, but you can do the same thing in your schoolwork. You can do the same thing in your personal life. Because when you win the NCAA tournament, it's great emotions. And then the next day you're like, or within an hour later, you're like, that's it. What now? What do I do now? You have that, you have a high, but then you also have a letdown. So you can't let the goal be the defining of you. You have to be good with you are. So whenever you achieve that goal, you don't have that letdown.
Right.
Now, in that way, whether you win or you lose, you have, like I said, instead of having those big roller coasters, you keep that steady. Hey, that was nice.
Stoic, not too high, not too low. That's one thing too. Over the years, I've learned to. So I'm never content, but I just learned that like progress is happiness. So I just enjoy progressing, whether it's reading, practicing, working out, whatever. Just enjoying the progress, and then once you reach a goal, it's like the cherry on top. But then all of a sudden, unless you're right on to progress towards the next thing, you get kind of bored really quickly.
Yeah, and the way I like to think about it is once you reach the top of the mountain, you see all the other peaks to climb.
There's always something to shoot for, which makes life fun. That's why I love working out so much, because you can always improve on something.
Oh, always improve. Improvement is the key word. Is you just constantly challenging yourself, and you keep improving. Because this is your journey that you have to do. And the only person that you need to do it for is yourself.
With your kids, I assume that's the goal more than anything, is just focus on progress as opposed to wins and losses. And
yeah, when the kid's in the club, and even with my little 6-year-old, he's a little bouncer. He's off the wall. He doesn't like to pay attention to instructions. He just wants to play, which is okay at 6 years old.
Absolutely.
And especially with Pennsylvania being the hotbed of wrestling, I would say 9 out of the 10 kids that were phenoms whenever I was in elementary never made it to college. And that's because they get burned out. Well, how do you get burned out? You get burned out whenever it's not fun anymore. And
Right.
The other thing too is that at a young age, whenever you don't do something, if you don't learn to do something for yourself because you're having fun with it, that's whenever it becomes a job, it becomes work, you get burned out, you don't want to do it anymore. Or you try to find avenues that are fun that might not be good for you personally, whether it be eating too much,
All right.
ain't out drinking, finding girlfriends, getting into recreational drugs. Those are all avenues to release stress that you have from everything that you're doing. So that's what we had such a high burnout rate, because a lot of the kids, you're forced into doing it. And because even with kids sports, doing something like a job is stressful.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not the way it was designed to do. Play all multiple sports. I say Jordan Burroughs is the prime example. He played football. He played football, and he did wrestling, and one-time state champ, becomes one of the best in the United States. Cale Sanderson, when he first came to Penn State, he showed us how he played he played football his freshman year at in high school, and he became a 4-time state champion. But he played football his freshman year, and he showed us where the opposing coach came over and tackled him because it's pretty funny. He was just the closest guy to the coach, and the opposing coach came in and drove him to the ground. I don't know why, but it's a funny video. But he played multiple sports. You can be the best that you can be, but let the kids play.
Have fun, right? Like, so burnout is basically lack of fun.
Yeah, right? Burnout is really, that's what it is. And you see so many, and that's what happens in wrestling seasons in college. Programs, the kids get burned out from the season. And then as Coach Mark Perry, who's now at Iowa, he would say to me, give them a reason to quit everybody wants to quit this time of year. Just give them a reason. And that would be as you're on a takedown and you finish it, that person quits and you win the match 3-2 because they're done. They're ready. Season is done. They're ready to be done cutting weight. They're ready to eat more. Give them a reason to be done.
So it's like coaches, right? Have fun. Don't worry about cutting weight when you're a kid. Good technique. Make it fun again. Lead by example is so big, right? And and then I'm going to say it again because it's so important. It's just have fun. And then as they get older, and then we were talking about the other day too, no one cares about what tournaments you won when you're in grade school. No one really cares what you won in high school all that much. You know what I mean? Just have fun through the whole process. That's what hopefully, whatever sports my kid wants to play, I'm going to support it and make it as fun as possible, not spend too much time traveling, mix and play, fishing, hunting, everything.
Oh, yeah. And I always, every year, even though I wrestled, I tell people, and my dad didn't let me play football, which is kind of stinks. But I wish I would have at least tried that once. But I had a different mentality with it. I told people I was a 3-sport athlete. I did folk style, freestyle, and Greco. So, because I approached it that way. The folk style and the Greco had a completely different mindset than what the freestyle was, or than what the folk style was. And folk style was more kind of like I had to work at it. Freestyle and Greco was my play time, whenever I really could play with the sport of wrestling. And winning and losing isn't I would say it's not really indicative of how good you are as a wrestler. We use winning and losing as a gauge, but it doesn't tell people how big your ceiling is. So and the biggest example is that I remember as a kid, I think the best he took was maybe 6th in our elementary, junior high states. In high school, he ended up being a 2-time state runner-up and becomes a 1-time national champ. In college for Cornell, he just was the kid who beat me in the NCAA finals. And the year that I took 2nd, we grew up 20 minutes apart. We trained together. I took it year-round serious. He did it during the season. He started with the school elementary program. He did the school elementary program. I did the private practice in the club and traveled around, did it year-round. He did baseball and football the whole way up through. Well, we ended at the same level when it came to college because he had the same passion. He had the wrestling passion, and he chose to dedicate to it for college. So it doesn't matter where you start. Where I was a 4-time state champion whenever I was in elementary. Like I said, the best he ever took was I think maybe 6th or 7th place in elementary. So it doesn't matter where you start. It's how you finish. And as long as you consistently just keep getting a little bit better each and every day. Coach Kale, his big thing at practice is 1%. Just get 1% better today. Just get 1% better. And as you keep getting that 1% better, over time, you're gonna eventually be the best.
Yeah, it's so honest because it just applies to life, like in everything. Just be a little bit better every day and be grateful for the process and be happy and enjoy it. And then life is just better. It just applies to everything. That's what wrestling's intelligent wrestling, like you guys do it at Penn State. It's just life. It's a good approach to life. Unintelligent wrestling, grind and be miserable and just grind. It's the same thing that makes for a miserable life. So you guys, Penn State's got to figure it out, man. The secret sauce is there. Hopefully more people take some of the tips you just gave and just apply it. That'd be super, super awesome.
Yeah. And that's really the key is that not to, it's not about how much you do. It's what you do with that time is the key. It's what you do with that time. So it's not about the number of hours that you put in wrestling. It's how much wrestling did you put in those hours.
Oh, absolutely.
That's really the key. Because I remember when I first started wrestling, when I was a kid, I wrestled 2 years and I won Tulsa Nationals at 2 years wrestling. And the difference was because I beat guys that were wrestling for 6-7 years at the time. I think I was maybe 11 years old at the time, 12 years old. Yeah, 11 or 12 at the time. The difference was whenever I was at practice, I was paying attention. I was the first guy in, first guys out, really putting in my focus. I was focusing on what they were teaching and I was doing it. And when I was there at practice, I was doing it with an intense focus. But then where other guys, they kind of goof around, they talk, they use it as a social time. And it makes a big difference. It's what you put into, it's not how much time you put in, it's what you put into that time. and with Cale Sanderson at Penn State, he's got that figured out where he can have us drill moves over and over and over. I would say kind of like the old school way.
Right.
Or he could teach us, here's the position, now figure out how to finish it. And here's my suggestion, play.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. I call it, a lot of people that are proud of being busy. I don't like to be busy. I like to be productive.
Yeah.
It's like, and I call it get shit done. So it's like, when I'm not busy, I just get shit done. And it's the same thing you just described. Like it's like, why waste time for 3 hours when I can just be productive for 15 minutes and then go play for 2 hours and 45 minutes?
Oh yeah. And and it comes around to that, being productive takes a lot of planning. You got to plan, you got to plan it out. It's not something that just happens. It takes thought and organization in order to be productive. So when we come into practice, we don't come in at practice at Penn State. Coach Cale has his, he has his 10, 15, 20 minutes worth of, I'd say, technique. When I mean 20 minutes technique, that's his teaching time. We're actually doing it for 45 minutes to 50 minutes of the technique where we're doing our play wrestling. He says, here's the position, here's how you want to finish, but I want you to go out there. We'll spend 10 minutes practicing a position or a technique where we only hit it 4 times. We only actually hit the technique 4 times because you start out with doing the technique and then it turns into a mini wrestling match because you're playing around these positions. And we're not struggling. It's not 100%, but you're kind of like I said, being 2 squirrels rolling over a nut. You're being fluid with each other. You're flowing, and you figure out if I jump this way, it doesn't work. But if I jump that way, it kind of works. And continuous wrestling. So in a matter of 10 minutes, each person might only hit the move 4 times because you're practicing playing around in that position.
I'm going to ask you one last question, a wrestling question. What is if you had to pick one best pinning move, what is it?
In what position?
Anything. Just pick, like, you got to pick one move to pin a dude with. Not from feet to back. So like a riding position to a pinning combination.
So on top.
Yeah.
Okay. So on top, it's honestly, it's between a cradle and a half. A cradle is the easiest when you get it locked up, but sometimes you have a hard time getting it locked up. A half you can hit with the way Coach Cale teaches it. And actually, the way he taught it, he got it from Troy Letters. Troy Letters, he wrestled for Lehigh. I think he was a 1-time or 2-time national champ, 3-time finalist, freak on top. He was at Penn State for a little bit, and he taught us on how to hit. He had a crab ride with a half series. And that's what David Taylor does. He did it quite a bit in his college days. But once you learn how to do a half, man, you can pin anybody. Once you learn how to do it correctly and use their momentum, you can pin anybody. But when it comes to the tightest, cradle. Absolutely, the cradle is the
it's
best.
So crazy. When I thought you'd say cradle for sure, hands down. I wasn't expecting a half, but it's not just a half. It's the intricacies and the technique crab ride to a half, which is so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a half because really it's just a half. Like if you down to his stomach, anytime the guy has the arm up, you're hitting half because a bar arm, you have a hard time hitting a bar arm. Tilts, you really don't pin people in tilts. So there's only one move left, and it's the half. And every pinning combination is somehow you're turning his belly to his back, which is a half type position outside of people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, man, I appreciate the hell out of your time. I might have to pick your brain more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anytime we'll link up again, and you can ask some more and maybe focused questions and as time goes on. But I'm an open book, and I still have another 2 hours to go with stuff in my brain that I haven't told you yet. But
dude, I appreciate it.